Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Gina Burgess, author of Weep Not for the Dead. Gina, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Paul. I'm glad to be here.
Are you ready to get started?
Yes, indeed.
All right. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Okay, if they've never been published before, or if they've been published 25 times, the main thing to do is to build that social media platform right now. You connect with other authors who are successful in their genre and nurture those relationships and just keep on doing it. Spend at least an hour a day on that. I know people say, I hate doing that. I'd rather be writing. But if you're writing as a hobby, that's okay. Don't do it. But if you're writing as a professional, then you really need to build that platform.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Oh, I guess maybe the one thing that is hard about it, well, we're really getting published. There's nothing hard about that. Indie publishing especially, it's the easiest and most lucrative type of publishing that you can have. But I always wonder why anyone wants to traditional publish anymore, because they make you do all the work, and then they take a part or more than half your royalties usually, and you're not getting paid for the work that you do, really. But if you really want to get down to it, the hard part, I guess, is that as an editor and an illustrator, I recognize that an author needs to recognize the deep need to provide a quality professional product. There's just no getting around it these days. Readers are not willing to pass over the typos anymore, the bad grammar. They want quality product. And there's so many books out there right now, so many authors out there. Readers, it's really a choice plucking for readers now. They don't have to plow through bad writing for a cheap book.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
Okay, well, this is going to sound weird, but there's no real one thing. It's always a combination of things, and it takes a considerable amount of energy and foresight to really do a good promotion. The first thing to do is start with a book proposal. That is going to help you to get your market down, target your market. It's going to help you to find your different places where you're going to find your readers. I think the book proposal is probably the most cost-effective marketing tool that you could do.
Now, when you're talking about a book proposal, could you give our audience a little bit more information about what goes into that?
The book proposal is the thing that authors used to send to traditional publishers and say, okay, I know this about my market. This is where I can find people to read that will read my books. These are the types of readers that like my genre. There is a particular book that my book is like, but my book is better. That sort of thing. A synopsis of your book where you boil everything down to 25 to 50 words. It's basically the tool that will help you to outline step 1, step 2, step 3 of your marketing strategy.
And then when your book launched, what specific strategies were you using when the book launched?
Well, with Weep Not for the Dead, I didn't really do anything. I was going to college, and when I first launched it, and I didn't have time. But with my book called When Christians Hurt Christians, which I published 2 years ago, I set up a whole bunch of speaking engagements and sold a lot of books that way. People like to know what the content is. They want to be able to trust the author. And just with a picture sitting on Amazon, they don't know. They see what you say about it, but they don't know if it's true or not. And even though nowadays they can get the first chapter for free and read it, it still isn't that, it doesn't put them in that comfort zone and overcome their reader objections like a good speaking engagement does.
Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Okay. Besides the Bible, because I love reading that every day, and there's so much in there. But I have two writing favorites that I learned a very, very valuable lesson from. One is Pride and Prejudice. It taught me the value of anticipation. Too often, especially if you watch any movies these days, the two protagonists, they jump in the sack or they kiss right away, and there's nothing left for anticipation or to anticipate. But when you hold that out and draw it out and bring them together and then bring them back, even washing your hands together with someone in a dishpan can be sensual. And it doesn't have to be naked bodies. It's the anticipation of the two people that are apart coming together and finally have a meeting of the lips, so to speak. Now, the other book is The Scarlet Pimpernel. And it's a mystery sort of only for Marguerite. She doesn't know who her husband really is. And that kind of thing is just so important for an author to understand, that the reader really does not like being kept in the dark and finding out something, even though all the characters find it out. They don't want to wait and find out 3 chapters into the book something that all the characters know already. That's just not fair to the reader. And if you play fair with the reader, they're going to buy more books.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
My mom always used to say, when my sister and I complained of so many chores they have to do, or something had gone wrong at school or whatever, she would always say, "We all must bear our little burdens." Not very helpful. But then I discovered a quote in Psalms that says, "The Lord lifts those who are bent beneath their loads." And I realized I'm not bearing my burdens by myself.
Well, Gina, I want to thank you for being a guest on this show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Online, they can find me at authorscommunity.net, or they can find me at ginaburgessediting.com.
Well, Gina, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.